Eisner-nominated comic book creator behind titles like Ghost of Science Past, Arca, Man's Best, and Miss Truesdale and the Rise of Man. He is here today to discuss his 23rd Street launch title, Drome, an ambitious science fiction epic about civilization and the fragile balance between chaos and order. It is my pleasure to welcome Jesse Lonergan onto the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Jesse, what a pleasure. I'm so happy to have you here on the Oblivion Bar. You have been, it seems like you've been sort of hitting the circuit here recently with the press for Drome. So I greatly appreciate you being here for that.
It feels, I've been doing a lot. I mean, it's a big book, like 5 years in the making. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like we have to everybody has to try and do what they can to promote and get the word out. But for me, also podcasts are fun because, I'm a comic book artist. So I sit alone in a room a lot, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. So I talk to her a lot, and getting to talk to, like, I don't know, someone who knows who RoboCop is, is nice too.
That was actually gonna be my next question for you. Was I know some folks in the creative world and comics specifically don't particularly love doing sort of the press stuff, and they just do it out of necessity to sort of get the word out. So it is sort of refreshing to hear you say that you actually enjoy getting out there and talking about your work. Lowly folks like myself.
Yeah, no, lowly folks. I don't think so. I generally enjoy like podcasts and verbal interviews. The email interviews, I feel like tap into a part of my brain that is just like uncomfortable. And I'm like it. When I'm talking, the words just come out and I'm like, oh, there they go. Maybe it was stupid, whatever I said, but it's over now. But like with an email, it's like, oh, I've got time to read it again and hate everything I said. But you start editing it, start changing the words around, like worrying about commas and stuff. Sure. So it's talking to a person's always fun. Always enjoy that.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I think there's a small, I wouldn't even say small. There's a mighty Lonergan army of folks that we have been shouting from the mountaintops about the untold genius, the unspoken man of the mountains, just like saying, hey, this guy is absolutely just top notch, grade A. And we actually have a friend. I'm going to play a clip from a friend later on in this conversation. Probably one of the generals of that army that you know quite well. But that's a little bit of a teaser for later. But to my original point is that it's been sort of a long time coming to get you here on the Oblivion Bar because, and I think folks on social media, Instagram specifically, know how big of fans Aaron and I are of your work. So it felt like, the perfect time to bring you on now was sort of, again, the Drome hype, the drum beat, continuing to go. And I do want to, before we get into Drome though, let me just quickly ask you, you just got back from SPX, a couple weeks ago. We were talking to Jared Throne last week on the show, who was also there. And he basically said, and I'm assuming you're probably going to echo this, that it's basically like indie comics heaven. So I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna open this conversation with you the same way I opened it with him, which is, you mentioned Jordan Crane on Instagram as someone that you really admire that was there. But can you think of a couple other creators that were there at SPX that you found?
Yeah, like Nate Powell was there, and I got to chat with him a little bit. I got to table next to Tony McMillan.
Who's that?
Yeah. Like he and I are like good friends, so we don't get to see each other that much. So it was nice to get to see him. I forget other people I met. Dan Mazer. I've sort of like, it has like these two things of like, I get to meet people that I've known for a long time that I haven't seen in a long time. Like Rick Taylor was there, Neil Brito, but like it's also a little weird for me because I feel like I've sort of somewhere in between mainstream and indie, and it's like sometimes I feel a little like, I don't know if I belong here. Like I don't think I should put my Dark Horse books out on the table or something. But it's also just like I can't keep up with stuff the way I used to. So like, it's just like that you get to walk around and see all this stuff, see stuff that you really can't see anywhere else. And yeah, it's kind of indie comics heaven. It's definitely like, I don't know if there's any other shows anymore that are sort of like it in that way. Mocha is sort of like it, but has more of like an illustrator edge to it. And then I feel like some like Ape is gone, but yeah, it's just a great show. It's in Bethesda, which I think has this sort of benefit of like not being a terribly exciting place to be. So like everybody's there, you know, like Ronald Wimberly is there. Keith Knight is they're just there. Like, you know, they're around. Nick Bertozzi's just walking around. And as opposed to sort of like New York, where I'll be in this week, couple weeks.
Yeah.
You'll be there as well. Like New York, it's like, you get about 3 blocks away from the convention center and you might not know there's a comic book convention, you know, like, so it has that quality of sort of like very contained and stuff. So always a lot of fun.
Well, let me ask you this, to sort of go back on what you just said a moment ago. I found it really interesting that you said you were sort of in that in between where you are working on some mainline stuff over at, you know, Dark Horse. You've done some DC stuff here recently, of course, Boom Studios with Man's Best, all the things, right? But also I guess I sort of still see you as this sort of indie darling as well. What does it feel like to sort of be there in that middle? Are you comfortable being there, or do you find yourself trending one way or the other?
Yeah, I think it's where I am.
Yeah.
Like I don't, I feel like I've gotten very lucky in that stuff that I did very much in more of a much more indie mindset has been sort of like applauded by the mainstream, like Hedra coming out like with Image picking it up and then it getting nominated for an Eisner, and then that sort of, you know, leading to work within the mainstream. I feel like I did this weird thing that was appreciated, and now I still sort of do this weird stuff that I find interesting, that motivates me, but I also have like, you know, I'm doing it for Boom or I'm doing it for Dark Horse or DC. And I felt like, you know, DC, it was small, but I felt like when they asked me to do it, that they wanted me to do, like, they wanted weird, crazy layouts and stuff. And they wanted me to like make a strange 4 pages of art. And so
we're talking about New Gods for everybody who doesn't know. We're talking about, was it issue 3 of New Gods?
Yeah, two, I think.
Or two, maybe, yeah.
I forget. But yeah, it's like 4 pages. Yeah, but I felt that that's what they wanted, you know? And so I feel maybe a little spoiled of like, I get to sort of do my weird stuff and then, you know, work with Mike Mignola. So like, it does feel, like it just sort of a little bit of an in-between, but I think that's probably best for me. That's sort of
the moment that DC announces that Jesse Lonergan is going to be the normal artist on Batman is the day that I'll be gone. You know, like at a certain point you get to this age where like you don't really understand pop culture with the youth and like you're just lost to it all, and you don't like, that would be me if they announce you as like the mainline artist for Spider-Man. I'd be like, what's happening right now in the medium?
Too. I would be like, what happened that yeah, I guess I feel like that's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like, where am I? It's like, well, I'm never going to be the main artist on any flagship book. Like, but like maybe Dead Man's possible.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Personally, it's like people are like, Batman would be the one. I'm like, Batman. Batman's cool. I love Batman, but it's not like that would be the one. I'd prefer something like weirder. Like something where I feel like there's more to sort of explore, because Batman, there's a lot of Batman already. Like I love it when I can like find a character that Marvel or DC character that I think is interesting, but also you can still find all of it. It's like, you know, there's actually not that much Dead Man stuff, for example. Like it's like you can track it down and it's going to be like, you know, a little section. Batman, it's like that's going to be shelves and shelves and shelves of books if you want to try and Grant Morrison it and read everything. And so I like it when you can find that sort of thing with the mainstream stuff, something that's where you can see everything.
Yeah. And, it seems like, just speak on Deadman really quickly, it seems like he's gone pretty much untouched since Neil Adams has put his hands on him, and I feel like
there's the Kelly Jones stuff.
Right.
But other than that, I also don't keep up. So maybe there's you probably know better than I do, like the last 20 years of DC, but like, it seems like he's gone, sort of been left alone.
Sure. Well, and to speak on what you're saying there too, if from a fan's perspective, I would love to see you be able to just sort of let your hair down and just go crazy with a character. And I think there maybe could be some constraints by doing like an extremely popular character, like say a Batman or someone, unless it was like maybe a Black Label or something. But I want to go back really quickly. I want to go back to SPX because I want to know what sort of, speaking of that being in the in-between, and I'm sure a lot of folks were there, maybe specifically to see you there. What was the reception for Drome?
Maybe.
I mean, if I was going, I would have been there to see you and then maybe a couple other folks, but Drome.
Yeah, Drome
and also
really quick.
Yeah. That was going to be my question. It was going to be Drome, but also We Ride at Night. Both of those together. What was that like for you?
Drome sold out quick. Like I did not bring enough books. It was, I feel like, I don't know. I think with Drome and it's sort of like Hedra, where it's like people kind of look at it and like they want it, or they don't. Like I don't think it's really like an in between. It's like you look at it and you're like definitely for me or definitely not for me.
Right.
And so I think because of that, it feels like it does well. It doesn't have people pick it up and be like, oh, I thought this was something else. It's like, no, you know what you're getting. And it was, so like it felt like a good response. And people ask about like process and stuff and, how I think about pages, which is always sort of like a cool thing to get to talk about with just, kids, like to talk to like an 18-year-old kid about page layout. So that felt like it was received well. We Ride at Night was pretty good as well. It's sort of, I didn't know what to expect because it is sort of a Batman thing and I didn't think it would necessarily do that well. But I think the style and the aesthetic sense that sort of drives We Ride at Night fits in with SPX.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's interesting. Drome, like you said, very much sort of showcases what it is on its cover. And I think 23rd Street did an incredible job in terms of the design and the dust jacket. All of it is really well made. And I think even if you maybe didn't even know you didn't know what Drome was to begin with, I think you could easily find that, what you're looking for on the cover here. And of course, your design work of the cover is also great. But to kind of noodle on We Ride at Night, because I told you before the recording, and I want to sort of reiterate this to the listener, is that I sort of purposefully came in ignorant to We Ride at Night because, I would categorize myself as a Jesse Lonergan super fan, but, I feel like I've heard very little about We Ride at Night outside of the fact that you've had these ash cans at some conventions and such. So
it was meant to be like this sort of like quick bootleg, quick Batman bootleg that I was going to do like super fast. And then it took 3-4 months just because, like up until like maybe like 2 months ago, I've always been working on a book, like in addition to my solo stuff. So, like Ghost of Science, like Drome, I did like Ghost of Science Past and Arca and the first Miss Truesdale series and Man's Best. All of those were done while I was working on Drome, like sort of in the background. And so We Ride at Night was sort of another thing. And I kind of wanted, Drome is this very, I think it's balanced, but like I don't know how to, obsessiveness with like the layout of a page and sort of the math of a page and the composition of the page is really like a controlling factor in how Drome was put together. And with We Ride at Night, I wanted to kind of go the other direction where it's really much more focused on like the illustration and also like Drome, I think, is very clean. You pick it up and it's clean and orderly in the composition. And I wanted as much like kind of dirty noise as possible with We Ride at Night. And so like kind of trying to use as many tools as possible, trying to do everything on paper. So no digital digital work at all. So it's like, if I'm going to get a gray tone, I'm going to do that on the paper with stamps or rollers with stamp ink colored, black and white color, gray colored pencils, screen tones, just like as much different things in different ways. I've got collage in there. I use photographs of a toy, like, as many different things, and sort of trying to create this sort of like visual experience with it, which was sort of, I think, very different from what I've been doing with Drome, which was this very like clean, very purposeful thing. So that was sort of my intention. And then, I just decided to put it together as a mini comic. I guess sort of also with Drome, there was like this big like seriousness, and it's like a brick, it's like this, like I wanted like something like, it's over 300 pages. I just ordered some books from New York. Like the boxes weigh like 30 pounds, but there's only like 12 books in it.
Which you'll sell out of in like the first 10 minutes of New York Comic Con.
I know. Well, I'm just like, how do I, like, these are so big and heavy. I can only like, how many of these boxes can I bring? But like, so I wanted like We Write at Night to be like, I want it to be cheap. I want it to be a photocopy. Like, if Kinko's still existed the way it used to exist, I would have gone into Kinko's at like midnight and tried to make it on their copiers. So totally this other direction. And then sort of a more chaotic, edging on nonsensical, but more surreal, abstract sort of narrative.
You talking about this kind of reminds me of a couple of months ago, we had Trad Moore on the show and discussing sort of like the progression of his career and what it sounds like to me with Drome, which has been sort of living with you, as you said, for many years now.
Yeah.
And sort of this obsessiveness that goes along with being with a project that long. And then you move on to We Write at Night, which sort of, as you said, sort of is like dirty and almost like fever dreamish in a way.
Yeah.
Mediated, what did he call it? It was mediated restraint is what he called it. Whereas as someone like yourself, who you have a particular sort of story concept, you have this idea and you're pushing yourself to see if you can do it. And it sounds like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in assessing this, but like, sounds like Drome was this sort of thought experiment with you to see if you could do it, if you could really go that obsessive and still live to tell the tale. And then once you've done that, you had to grow in you had to branch out, because art is growth, I think, in a way. Like you had to like almost grow another branch somewhere else with We Write at Night. Does that sound correct in a way?
Yeah, I think creatively, I don't know if it's how compulsive it is, but there's always this thing of like, I don't know if I can do this. And so like when I started Drome, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like there were narrative ideas and how I would express them that I definitely did not know how I was going to do at the beginning. Like I was like, okay, I'll get to chapter 4 and I'll have to figure that out. And I think I'll be able to figure it out when I get there. But like sort of like ding in that. And, sort of, with We Write It Now, I was like, I don't know if this will work. I think it will, maybe it won't. Like, that sort of like challenge of will it work? I think for all my solo stuff is kind of like, I guess it's more interesting to me just to be in that place where it's like, it might not work. It's probably not the best in terms of a career. Like to be like,
keeps it interesting.
Those 50 pages didn't work. So, but I think, and also I think I don't really like repeating myself. Like you asked me about the podcast thing and whether it being difficult. What I do find difficult is being asked the same question because it drives me crazy to answer it the same way. And if I feel like the same words coming out of my mouth in the same order with sort of the same cadence, I'm like, I don't know why, but it really bothers me. Like I get really uncomfortable. I'm like, never say it that way again. So I kind of always like sort of adding to things. And I think like We Write at Night is sort of an extreme end for me that I probably won't go there, but it might be something that like I incorporate into more something else, something bigger, something longer.
Yeah, you add those tools that you learned from creating that We Write at Night. And then you use them somewhere else,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's also things I learned like, oh, don't do that again. Mm-hmm. Like the lettering is all done but with stamps. So I had like 3 different letter alphabet sort of stamps, and one of them was like the easiest one was this sort of, it looked like the old library date stamp books, but it was all just letters, and it was 13 letters long. And so I could do like, a phrase with spaces that was 13 letters, but otherwise I would have to start over and like move everything around. But the one that for size wise, I ended up using the most was this like Staples brand address stamp that you're supposed to make, where basically you're supposed to just put the letters in once and then just stamp a bunch of times with it. But instead, I had these like little tweezers, and I would like stamp it once and then take them all out. It was so time consuming and like such a headache. It's like never again. Like I like the way it looks at all, but such a pain to do. So yeah, like, I don't know. Sometimes I think like other people have the ability to like read how to do something.
Yeah.
And they're like, they got it. And it's like, no, I have to do it wrong. And then I'll understand why you don't do it that way. Mm-hmm. After I've done it wrong. And it'll be something that's like, oh yeah, that's the first page of the book. They say, don't do it that way. It's like, I know, but I
have to do it wrong.
I have to learn by making mistakes.
I'm the same exact way. I will mistake how to open a door once in my life, but then I will never make that mistake ever again. It's like, it's one of those things that like you said, I have to learn that lesson myself. And I'm a firm believer that we learn the most from our mistakes and things that we do incorrectly, because then we can build off that.
Right.
One final question for you here, sort of pertaining to We Read at Night. It's sort of a bit of an oddball question as well. What do you think fever dreams mean? Because I've heard you talk about this book sort of emulating or sort of maybe in the same neighborhood as a fever dream. Like fever dreams that you and I have had and listeners have had. Well, like, do you have this idea of like, why do we as humans have fever dreams? It's maybe a big question, but I'm curious.
I think our world makes a lot less sense than we want it to. Mm-hmm. I think we go through our days and we accept certain things, but I feel like kind of right now, current climate, it's being like, yeah, chaos isn't that far away, is it? Like, right. And I sort of, in art, I kind of like the chaos and like juxtaposition of ideas that maybe are unexpected or maybe seem like non sequiturs. I find that leads to sort of an interesting way of thinking, like having these two things sort of next to each other that are maybe incongruous. And I think it can be like disconcerting at times, but also it can be like, I don't know, I feel it can have a positive effect. And so I think that's what I find interesting about fever dreams. And my dreams, when I remember them, are like the connections that are made. Like I think probably all of us have had a dream where a person from our past that we had not thought of, and maybe even didn't have that much of a relationship with, even like I'm thinking about like people in college who have appeared in a dream within the last like year. And it's like, I'm not even sure of that person's name, but like, what is my head pulling at there that this person resonates in some way in my mind still? I don't know. It's also kind of like the way your memories work, where, you don't remember something and then you go to a place and all of a sudden you remember all these things, mm-hmm. like I went
because of a smell or something,
the smell, and like these whole narratives come back that I would have sworn 5 minutes ago I had no recollection of, but like they're there. And so there's this vast, messy basement in our minds. And I guess I think that's where fever dreams come from.
Yeah.
I think, potentially, I don't know that We Write at Night gets into it, but like things we're uncomfortable with, things that we're not so sure about or worry about, or like, deep doubts and those sorts of things can come out in a fever dream, maybe in a safe way.
This is interesting. I'm very excited to pick up my copy of We Read at Night at New York here in a couple of weeks, because I want to sort of connect these dots again. I had this sort of mission to go into this blind because I wanted to hear you talk about it yourself. And I've heard rumblings. This is the last thing we can talk about before we get into Drome in terms of We Read at Night. But I'm curious, there's been rumblings, the legends, I'm reading the tea leaves here, and it's apparently there's rumors that you're going to possibly be taking We Read at Night over to 23rd Street. Is there any truth to that rumor?
We Read at Night to 23rd Street?
like a larger story within. Okay, so maybe I'm misreading the tea leaves.
I mean, something within in that style, but I mean, it's Batman. I have no rights to that.
Okay, so I didn't know that actually. You mentioned that there was Batman sort of like intertwined in it, but I didn't know it was actually Batman.
Oh, it's actually Batman.
No kidding. Okay, wow. So that went right over my head.
It's my Batman.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like, sort of rockabilly greaser Batman.
Okay.
So, wow. No, it's going nowhere legally.
That will be photocopied forever.
It'll be photocopied. It'll be there.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't put. I don't think it matters. And it seems like maybe I'm risking something, but it seems like the companies don't care like anymore about like low level bootlegs. And I don't know like how big something would have to be to get on their radar, because there have been some recent ones where I'm like, that's pretty successful seeming. And it did not seem to cross the line. So yeah, part of it, I think about doing something in that style in a longer form and, sort of taking what I've learned, but it'll stay just a photocopy that I kind of just sell at shows, I think.
Yes. Speaking on that, I think sort of the poster child of this idea is, and longtime fans of Daniel Warren Johnson know this pretty well, that for a while he would put out these sort of yearly zines of sort of existing IP that he sort of puts his little spin on. And I know there was a Luke Skywalker zine that he did a couple of years ago that was like, it blew up and people were really excited about it. So sort of speak on what you're saying there. Yeah, it can happen. And, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if We Read at Night, people get wind of this being a Batman story and then obviously, again, with your sort of ascension within the industry, I think there could be that perfect storm where we're talking next year sometime and people are like, you're like, yeah, I can't even sell We Read at Night anymore or even give it away because of how popular it got,
Yeah. I'm not that. It's
just depends on how many.
I'm in between. Like
it just depends on how many.
I'll slip through those cracks. I think.
It depends on how many photocopies you can make, I guess. To how many of those you can afford. But okay, so before we get into our next question here, I have to play this clip that I teased earlier from a mutual friend of ours. Yeah. From a conversation that I had a couple months ago. So here we go. All right. Well, there we go. Tony McMillan, again, mutual friend of ours, also a very, very excellent comic book creator himself.
Yeah.
He was on the show a couple months ago, and he had a lot of great things to say about you and about Drome, which is the next thing we'll talk about here. I think that perfectly sets us up for your brand new graphic novel over at the newly imprinted 23rd Street, which is an imprint through First Second. This came out on August 19th, and I'll just do a brief synopsis just for the listener in case they're not familiar. So first, there was nothing, and then humanity was born, and an endless cycle of violence began. From the depths of the ocean, a mighty demigoddess is called forth to rein in humankind's destructive impulses and teach a language of peace and harmony. Civilization quickly takes root, a great city rising from the desert, but the balance between chaos and order is a fragile one, and there are higher powers at work in this strange new world. So, Jesse, you could easily, I think you could read this thing in a cool 30 minutes if you really wanted to. But I think just like a lot of your work, anyone who's been a fan of your work for a while knows this, that it really rewards upon slowing down and sort of, drinking in every page, in whatever proper time that is. So my question for you is, with the theme of life and death, and sort of focusing on that idea, I think, in this story within Drome, and how, even we as humans are basically trained to always sort of look into the future and always plan for that, right? Did you have that quick digestion of this story in mind that we just spoke about while structuring it to sort of counterbalance that theme?
I think quick digestion. Yeah, I don't think it's. I think some comics, if they're 300 pages, it's going to be a bit of a slog at times to get through. And I think because of the lack of words, Drome doesn't end up being that way. And I think because of that, the time the reader, I feel it's like a weird relationship between the maker and the reader of it, because it's like, I was working for like 5 years. Yeah. And so like my perspective on it is so skewed because it's so far from how it's meant to be, and I can't see it the way it's meant to be seen. Like, so I did think about that quality of like it being sort of something that could go quick, but something you could also take time with. And I did want a sort of weight of pages, like to be able to tell this story and to have it feel like I think when you talk about life and death, there's this sort of vastness in it. And I wanted to sort of get at that sort of like sense of scope. And it felt like it needed to be the size it is to do that. Even with or without words, I just feel like shorter things, I don't know, it doesn't, things don't go into your memory the way I wanted them. I wanted, like, when you get to chapter 4 or chapter 5, to have things that come back from chapter 1 that were sort of like in your memory, that it's not like it's like you knew it and then you forgot it. Oh, but here it's back again. Like, and that sort of narrative movement, it's sort of like in, those big books, like where things go on across generations and stuff. I wanted that sort of feeling as well, but not necessarily that I wanted people to have to read it for years and years.
Sure. And then we're also living in sort of this serialization, I think, of our media. A lot of times whole TV series that take years to make, like similar to how long it took you to create Drome, you watch them in a weekend, you binge all episodes. And it seems like that's, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but honestly, I don't know if there's a wrong or right way to consume, like I don't know.
There's just like different way. Like it just feels like there's different ways of consuming things. Like I watch a lot of, while I'm like drawing, like the last year, it's been a lot of police procedurals, like CSI or Law and Order. And there's something about how those shows work where it's like, one, I'm watching them pretty fast, but like you get this actual familiarity with the characters because you've seen this tech guy on CSI for 5 years. And like his character has developed, not in big scenes, but like over the course of all these years. So it has a relationship with that character that I feel like with the prestige format shows you don't get, because there isn't that like Severance is a great show, but there's only like 20 episodes. Yeah. Like 5, Law and Order and CSI, that's not a season. Right. Like in those shows, Law and Order, SVU must be approaching 30 seasons.
Right.
Like and that actress has been on the entire time. Like you have a relationship with, I forget her name right now, but that you have seen this person age 30 years, and that's one way of consuming something. And then there's the really good movie that's like 2 hours long and done. And that's it. I mean, now I feel they don't let movies be it. Like for a long time, you could say Blade Runner, it was just this 2-hour movie and it was done. And it's like, no, there's just going to be more. And it was a 2-hour movie, and no, they're going to make more of it, which I think is a different issue. But I feel there's a thing that you can achieve in a movie, but there's also something like Law and Order can achieve that a movie can't, because there's so much of it.
You get so much more time with these.
So much more time, and like the way the characters grow, and potentially like the way an actor affects a character as it goes, all those things. And so I just think it's just different. Like I feel like with Drome, I guess there's this sense of, in my head, like, should I return to it? Like, should I continue with this? And to me, like the main characters of Drome are done. Like there's room within the world for other stuff, but those main characters, it's like, I don't think I should touch them. I think that was a nice One Piece story that should have sort of be left.
Really quickly before we move on with Drome, were you talking about Mariska? Is that who you were talking about with Law? Yeah. Did you see her documentary on HBO about her mom?
Jane Mansfield, right?
Yeah.
Her mom. Yeah. I didn't see the documentary. I mean, I know who who her mom is and her end.
Yes.
When she must have been very young, I think.
Mariska was in the car with her when her mom passed.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the documentary is incredible, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's sort of her approaching learning about her mom, who she never knew because she was like 4 when that accident happened. So all she's heard of sort of the legends of her mother and her sort of stardom at the time. But anyway, back to Drome though, I'll say, speaking on where you could take it possibly next, I think one of the strengths of this book, and there are many, is the way you build out the mythology. Really, speaking of the speed, again, I think we should stick on this idea of speed because, again, you could read this really quickly, but I don't think you should. I think that the way you build characters is really quick, and I think it's done really well. Like we get hard looks at, let's see, is that 4 or it's 5 characters if you include the 2 sort of folks in the sky.
There's sort of two big gods and 3 demigods.
Yeah.
And then you build a couple of humans. Yeah,
a couple side characters as well.
Yeah.
And I think like the way that you're able to get us to care about those characters pretty quickly and sort of not only just like care, but also see why they do what they do. And there's one character in particular that I'm thinking of, and I'm trying to, I know this book came out in August and we're talking at the end of September. So I kind of want to stay spoiler free, but on the same token.
You're talking about chapter 3, probably.
Yes. It's one of those things where I feel like we could easily spoil this entire book, tell you exactly what happens, but you will not appreciate it and you will not be satisfied unless you actually hold the book in your hands and read it yourself. It's one of those books. And I think that's the true like mastery of it, Jesse, is that you have to have this book. And I think it reads better. I read it. I've seen it being read digitally, but also because I know like Macmillan puts out some of the reviewer copies and such. But this book really rewards upon reading it in your hands, having the physical book in your hands,
Yeah, I think so. And like, I think like when you talk about like the speed aspect, I kind of think of it as like food. It's like just because you can eat something quickly, I don't think that's much of a comment on the food.
Interesting.
Like I think that's more of a comment on like you as an eater. Like I don't. Wow, they drink a beer in 15 seconds. It's like, oh, that must be a really bad beer, a good beer. I don't know. Like there's no comment on the beer. It's just like the person. So I think one of the nice things with comics, maybe more so than any other medium, is that you can choose how much time to spend with it. Like I think you can look at the art as long as you want and get into the art, and I can look at like The Dark Knight, which I was just looking at recently, and like I can just like look at this page of Batman on a horse and just like spend time looking at like this composition and Claus Jansen's inks and how beautiful it is, and then move on. And I feel like books is not really the same. Like I don't think you really stop in a maybe some people do admire sentences, but I don't really. You have no real control over that time. I suppose you could pause it. And music is the same sort of thing. But like I think one of the things that I like with comics is how much control the reader has over it, and how much time you can choose to spend with something. And like I remember like how I would read comics like in high school is like I'd go to the comic book shop and I'd come home with my stack of 5 or 6 comics, and I'd read them once fast, then I'd go back, read them like slowly, really looking at the pictures, and then like maybe read them a third. Like I think the sort of linear straight through form of reading of comics isn't the best way to read comics.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, Jesse.
Back and forth between them is good, and going back a few pages sometimes. So yeah, I try to do that, and trying to. There's one villain in the book.
We meet on like page 2.
Yeah, very early, but I think I felt like with the other characters, there may be conflicts and stuff, but they're not unjustified on either side, which is, I think, is kind of a very, I don't know, anyone who's been in a relationship and had an argument and can get perspective on it is like, well, you both have points. It's just that you're coming from different directions. And so trying to have that quality, I think like Kurt Vonnegut said he never had villains in his stories. Like everybody was just trying to do what they could do. And so I always like that idea. And so that's sort of one of the things with those 5 sort of main characters is that none of them are like evil, and I wouldn't say any of them are purely good either.
I think that's the most interesting kind of character archetype, right? It's that good people do bad things, bad people do good things. It's this idea that like have you seen Life of Chuck yet? The movie that came out earlier this year?
No.
Tom Hiddleston.
Okay.
It's an adaptation of a Stephen King novella, and one of my favorite lines of the year from any movie was, "We contain multitude," or Magnus, "We contain multitudes." I think it's now I'm messing up. We contain. Yeah, it's basically like that. We are layered individuals. Like we are not just a one note song. We have multiple things going on in us in once, and we are motivated by different things, and we desire different things, and we are afraid of different things, and all these things. And I think that again, you illustrate that really well with everyone. And again, I'm speaking very specifically of who we were just talking about a moment ago. And again, I guess if someone was going to categorize someone as like a antagonist throughout the story, I think he would possibly be it. And I was just curious, and I hate this sort of idea of asking a creator to explain what they meant when they did something. So don't feel pressured to do that with this question, but I'm just curious what you were thinking about humanity when you created that character and sort of their role in this larger world, I guess.
Yeah, I think there are very selfish, very spiteful people. And I think we've all had I feel like maybe people who have brothers, I'm an only child, but maybe people who have brothers and sisters, when they were young, an older brother or an older sister maybe like took all of something so that you couldn't have it. Like that might have happened. I think there are some people who kind of live their life in that mindset of like, I am going to take it. Not necessarily that I want it, but I don't want someone else to have it. And I just think that is a part, and it probably exists in all of us to some degree, not a lot. Like it might depend on who that other person is. That like, oh, I know this other person wants this thing, and I'm angry with that other person, so I'm going to take that thing. But there are people I think who exist in that state a lot, and it's unfortunate, but they're there, and I think that's probably what's driving that character.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And we see it in the first, like, again, that first page.
Right away.
Yeah. It's like immediate. It's
fight or flight, I feel like some people will greet anything new with negativity, it's different. I don't know what it is. I think because I sort of set everything in this mythological world, it's not small. Everything is big. And so this sort of fear and anger, it's not going to be like refusing to eat sushi, that's our daily life. Like the people who are like scared of new foods, but like, no, it's going to be like death. It's going to be death and murder. And, because I think that's sort of what I like about mythology is it feels like I think most of us on a day-to-day basis, our lives are pretty mundane. And all of our conflicts are kind of micro conflicts. But I feel like mythology, it sort of takes those same sort of things. It's just like it magnifies them up to, extreme level. And I think it feels it's easier to see that way. I think when you sort of magnify, I feel like my early books, the ones that nobody read, I feel like we're focusing on those like small little things. And it just, in some ways, it felt like maybe I was just asking the reader to be too patient, asking the reader too much. And I feel like now I've sort of moved to like, if there's going to be a conflict, it's going to be a big conflict. It's not going to be minor, especially with Drome. It just felt like everything was meant to sort of be big. It's a big book. It's long. It's heavy. Like all those things.
Well, yeah. So when I think of, because I've been a patron of yours for a couple of years now, so I've sort of seen this story slowly
page by page, week by week. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and you releasing those pages on a weekly basis is like so awesome. And I'll build on this more later on as we close out the show. But, similar to what you're doing a very similar thing right now over on Patreon with the Panda delivery service, which I'm super pumped about. I know you're taking a little bit of a hiatus from that for a bit now, but I think folks, you have plenty to chew on if you decide to go over to Jesse's Patreon and check it out. Yeah. Now, you, again, as I said, great Patreon. You offer a lot of great commentary when it comes to like the process of each page. We almost get like a bird's eye view into your sort of, your thought process when it comes to everything, when it comes to like the particular title that you're working on there. You even give like some alternative titles to Drome before the book was actually even put out.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
And Tony, when he said he helped name it, it's 100% true. Like I talked about it on Patreon. I talked with Tony about it a lot.
And he gets a special thanks in this book too.
Yeah. Just for the title. But no, he's a person I talk with a lot about comics and like how they work and stuff. The titles are hard for me. I think especially with something like Drome, where I sort of lean into like, I don't know, the form and the structure. It's like, oh, there's rules for the title. And if you go back digging through Patreon, like you can find posts where I'm like, it has to be 5 letters long. Because the comic is 5 panels wide. And so it's like, I want 1 letter for those 5 panels. Why? It's like, because that's how I am.
It's just how I am. You either accept it or not.
It's like, this is my project. I'm doing my thing. So titles, and even with 23rd Street, we had discussions of titles because they were worried about Drome as a title, that it is not a word that people recognize. It sounds like drone, which it also autocorrects to drone. So if you're writing about it and you're not careful, it'll switch back to drone. But yeah, thinking about the title and how the title affects the narrative. I feel, I guess I think of, like you said earlier, I felt like one of the things I meant to say to the response was sort of, I don't really think I'm like, as a writer, as an artist, sort of a what person, like what's the story? It's much more of a how. And so when you say to like tell the story kind of ruins it, it's like, yeah, because there's none of the how in me telling you the sequence of events, because it's more than the sequence of events. It's like how it's put together and how it's composed. And if I say like these characters come into conflict, it's shown in I'd like to think a unique way. And so 100%. Like with the title, I feel that same sort of thing of like, the title is part of telling people what it is. And I think having a title like Drome, I think it's like, wait, what is this? Which is how I want people to start, and I think I thought about things, there's the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's like the Epic of blah, blah, blah. It's like that gives it this, like, that pushes it in a direction that I feel is misleading and limiting to call it the Epic of anything. And then like,
and is that Epic EPOCH Epic?
I meant EPIC, but both of that would work too. Yeah. But I also feel that would be like a limiting title to put that in, like the ballad or the song. And then, so I wanted something that was sort of unfamiliar, but then still has some sort of meaning, that's not like random letters. Although me being me, I did think of just a palindrome of letters that was just visually interesting, like OXVXO, because I like that it looks the same backwards and forwards. Like it has its thing.
There is something to the visual language, right? Like words can be beautiful too, I think. Absolutely.
Right. And sort of, thinking about how it would look. And then Drome, I think it did come about from talking with Tony and like talking about like, and then it does, he and I, neither of us knows who he might have said it. I might have said it. I don't know. But like that it does, it's not immediate what it means, but then it like sort of ties into like, hippodrome or velodrome, this sort of this idea of a track or a course. And then like palindrome is sort of the order of things. And so it sort of has, it ties into the sort of kind of cosmic cycle of the story, but doesn't reveal too much. And I think especially because there's so few words, like in the book, it's good if it's not too many words in the title as well.
Well, you could have confused a ton of people and maybe even got some like sales from people who were just excited about the Halo stuff from the early 2000s. You could just call it Red versus Blue. And even that doesn't correlate with the story at all. You know, people would be like, Red versus Blue? I didn't know they were putting a comic about that. That's cool.
Right. Yeah. Even with Drome, it just came out in France. And apparently that's like a province in France is Drome. I think with an accent somewhere, but I've been told about this area in France that also is called Drome.
I have a couple of the prototypes, we'll say, or perspective titles. Can I share those?
Oh yeah, I don't remember them, but sure. I mean, I remember one.
Yeah. Well, one was Primeval. That was probably the longest one that you were sort of shooting around. Rising was another.
Rising. Okay. Yeah.
Epic, as we talked about, EPOCH.
EPOCH, yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then Proto was the last one that I saw.
That was another one. And for a long time, it was just called Prime. That was sort of my working title for a long time. Probably it was Prime for the longest time. But that had problems of like, one, there's Amazon Prime. And so like Prime comic book, I feel like SEO is awful for that. And then there's also a Marvel character called, it was Malibu, but now owned by Marvel and they do nothing with, called Prime as well. And so there's just sort of, I feel like it wasn't unique enough. And so, yeah, I prefer Drome to all of those, like Rising, Time.
No, I think Drome is just conspicuous enough to where you sort of have to wonder what it's about. Like you can even look at the like I think you could even just look at the front of the cover and you sort of see the grid and you obviously see, you know, sort of I would say our two central, would you say that these are our two central characters?
Yeah.
Maybe two driving force characters?
Maybe the two driving forces. Yeah. I feel with the horns, he does a lot. I call them black and white. Like they're kind of disinterested. Like they do things, but it's not like
motivation wise,
not necessarily even motivated. It's they're sort of this random force. But Blue is definitely the driving character. I guess Red maybe maybe could be this.
I always saw. And again, my opinion in this matter maybe doesn't mean as much, but Red to me sort of felt like a bit of an extension to Blue and sort of her, you know, her, and I say her sort of as a loose term, but like their journey, you know, and what they're doing. So, but that's not any damnation to Red because I think we get a lot of moments in this book with Red that I think maybe hit the hardest of any character possibly.
Yeah, I think he gets a lot of time. He's not really a driving force though. Like he's sort of very much it's funny. I think of him as sort of being this like wild character, but he's actually kind of one of the more peaceful characters in the book. Like he's actually like very much like a sort of source of calm. I feel like despite appearances and, you know, things he does.
Yeah, definitely the purest, right? Like even though, as you said, there's not really any good or bad characters in this book, but I think of all the characters, maybe the purest possibly. There is one other character that we're not talking about at the moment that kind of is just sort of existing within this world and sort of has things happen to them in a certain way.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're sort of treading on this land of potential spoilers. I want to make sure folks go into this nearly blind. Jesse, you've been great. You've been gracious with your time here today on the Oblivion Bar. So I have one final question for you here before I let you go. And it's sort of, again, noodling on this idea of finality, right? And then as we get to the end of this conversation, and, you know, folks who have read Drome probably have their own thoughts and theories on that and sort of pertaining to this story. But let me ask you, and this might be a big question, so I apologize, but when you finished this, you know, the final page of Drome alone in your studio, can you remember how you felt in that moment when you finished that final 5 years later?
It was interesting. It was like this feeling of like, it's done, you know, like I did it. But there was also a lot of doubt as well, you know, because I was sort of, you know, I had been posting it on Patreon and stuff, but still like kind of alone with it. And I also still didn't know like how I was going to get it published, or, you know, if I was going to be self-publishing it because no publisher would touch it or anything like that. Yeah. This feeling of, I think more recently, like, even though I've sort of been done like the main work on it for probably a year now, I've had this feeling of sort of like release, like slow sort of release of like the kind of the struggle of producing it, and like there's the creative pursuits, but also just like, you know, with life of like, I had a child while I was working on this, and you know, and started in the middle of the pandemic and stuff, and also, you know, working on other books, like sort of the discipline that it required to get it done. Like it's like been this sort of thing. And I think when I first finished, and even before it came out, like not knowing how people would respond, you know, because, you know, I've worked hard on other books and they've come out and nothing. And so kind of this like feeling that I'd accomplished something, but not knowing whether other people would see it. And I guess that's sort of like the risk of art, is like, I feel like I did something, but if no one else knows it, you know, if no one else sees it, if you don't get that acknowledgement, it's like, well, maybe you didn't do anything. Maybe you were just a weird guy who spent a lot of time drawing comic book pages, you know? So I feel like with it coming out, and as far as I've seen, I actually try not to read reviews, but like really positive response that people have been giving. And like, you know, I was at SPX, it was the first show with it, like all positive response. It feels just like really good. Like it feels like an accomplishment, which I'm not sure if I was at when I actually finished it.
Well, I'll tell you from my vantage point, sitting over here in Oblivion Bar land, I can tell you that most of the folks that I respect and people that I admire, and people who look at comics from and know more about comics than you, me, and everybody else.
Yeah.
They've been saying that Drome has potential to be the best book of 2025. And I'm not saying that to put pressure on you or on Drome, but I think that adds a lot of validity to those 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whether it is, you know, like that people are thinking in those terms is pretty, I don't know, like humbling in one sense, but, you know, rewarding at the same time. Like it's nice to that way. It's my northern soul is like cover up and like hide my face.
Yeah.
Like it feels like people are seeing what I was trying to do and appreciating it. And so that's very rewarding. And I appreciate it a lot. And I also, you know, I feel like people have been very positive. People have been talking about it and sharing it and stuff. And that's also very, I don't know, feels very nice. Mm-hmm. We're about to start talking about feelings, which is a struggle for me.
I don't know if the listeners know this or not, but there aren't many creators that we've had here on the show that don't like compliments more than Jesse Lonergan. He is like, I'm assuming you like them, Jesse, but you don't accept them very well.
I've been told like, you're really bad at accepting compliments. And you know,
I get it. It's
a few years of therapy and I'll probably be fine, but it's something I've tried to work on. I don't know if I'm going to get any better at it. I'm like,
I appreciate the humbleness though. Honestly, it is something that when you are as unique and excellent at something as you are when it comes to making comic books, and the fact that you can still with a straight face go, stop it. That's not real. It's refreshing, I'll say.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
I remember a person actually like, I used to be an English teacher and a student, an ESL teacher, and a student at the end of the year at a class, you know, saying like, you are a really good teacher. And I was like, and she was just like, just say thanks. like I could tell she was annoyed at me. She was like, just say thanks. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to eventually, when this thing starts getting some award hype, because I feel that I think it will. I'm excited to see your response to that, because it's going to be from my view, it'll be entertaining at the very least. Just try to see you stomach some compliments from people you admire.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could talk after this is over.
I want some dirt on people who have reached out to you and said they enjoyed Drome. But Jesse, you have been, again, such a great guest today. What a pleasure it is to finally get you on the show. And again, as I've said, many times throughout this conversation, such a huge fan of yours. And very, very excited to see you again at New York Comic Con. Excited for you and Drome and all the success that you've been seeing here recently. And in this with, Miss Truesdale as well. And then, of course, everything else that you have coming up here in the near future. So before I let you go here, I just want to tell everyone, I'll have links to Drome and, and a bunch of other works from Jesse in the show notes, as well as I mentioned earlier, his excellent Patreon that he hosts over there. I would put it up against a lot of other excellent Patreon pages from other creators. So Jesse, before I let you go, I'm gonna hand it off to you one more time. Is there anything that I missed? Anything that you want to sort of broadcast to listeners, how they can follow you and your career, all the other things?
No, I mean, Patreon is great. If you can support me there, if anyone's going to New York, see me there. I'll be in MICE in Boston in December. If anyone's in France, I'll be going to St. Malo Comics Expo as well. But yeah, thanks.
There you go, everybody. There's your final thanks from Jesse Lonergan here on the show. But Jesse, I will absolutely, if your schedule allows it, and you have something that you want to eventually talk about or promote or whatever, or if you just want to come back on and chat about comics, I would absolutely love to have you back on the show at some point.
Oh,
awesome. Well, thank you, Jesse, very much. We'll talk soon.